Good afternoon and welcome to the Federal Executive Forum, celebrating 19 years of profiling excellence in government IT mission programs. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss critical issues facing government and industry leaders in using information technology to improve healthcare and healthcare services. With me on today's show are John Rancourt, Deputy Director, Office of Technology at the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT, HHS. Jennifer Wendell, Acting Chief Information Officer, Health and Human Services. Dr. Neil Evans, Acting Program Executive Director, Electronic Health Record Modernization Integration Office, Veterans Health Administration. Dr. Thomas Osborne, Federal Chief Medical Officer at Microsoft. Gary Lynch, Global Practice Leader, CTO, Healthcare and Life Sciences at Verizon. And Tim Waters, Senior Manager, Federal SLED and Healthcare and Life Sciences at Equinix. Well, we often talk about what I like to call pliers and wires and sort of, clouds and storage, et cetera. Let me say it's quite refreshing to raise it up, the value chain here, and start talking about a very important subject, not that those aren't, and that's healthcare and the IT associated with healthcare, et cetera. John, we're going to start with you. Take us across the top and give us a state of the state as to where we are.
Luke, thank you. And thank you, everybody. So excited to be here today to talk to you about the work that we are engaged in at both ONC as the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology and HHS, and with my colleague, Jennifer, and all of you. So much is going on. It is such an exciting time to be involved in health IT. And I'll jump right in and say AI, as that's where
bingo, I got it on the bingo card.
the buzz is right now, and rightly so. So much has changed in the past year, but in many ways, things are very much the same. And the reason I'll put it that way is we've been working in this space for a long time. ONC has a program where we certify health information technology systems. And as part of that program, we have had a criterion that is for what we previously had called clinical decision support. And we've updated that as part of the recent change in our zeitgeist, if you will, related to AI, to now calling it predictive decision support interventions. And we're one of the first federal agencies to have issued a regulation on AI, and that was our Health Data Technology and Interoperability Final Rule. That rule is how we codify the work that we execute under our certification program. And in that program, we talk about how we want to promote more transparency of the systems that are using AI in healthcare. Happy to dive in more, talk about the different aspects of that, but at a high level, what that transparency is focused on is ensuring that AI algorithms, and this is in consistency with the executive orders on AI, we want to make sure that these systems are following the FEF principles, and that is that they are fair, appropriate, valid, effective, and safe. And so we're advancing these as a transparency aspect, because as Mickey Tripathi, the National Coordinator for Health IT, my boss, talks about it, we're AI optimists in the department, but really we need to make sure that we're taking those appropriate steps to ensure that the AI systems that are being used are following that FAVES framework. So
sure,
that's just to get us going, Luke.
Very powerful technology, must be used safely, respectfully, et cetera. We really appreciate that. Speaking of technology, Jennifer, you've been at the helm there for a little while, right? A lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts there. at Health and Human Services at the CIO shop. Tell us the state of the state.
So thank you for having me this afternoon. I'm excited to actually talk about two systems across HHS that we're modernizing, right? We have legacy systems, and I think it's so important that we always look at those systems that need to be upgraded and meet the needs of the healthcare individuals across the United States. And in particular, the Indian Health Service, an agency within HHS that provides comprehensive healthcare service for approximately 2.6 million American Indians and Alaskan natives who belong to 574 federal recognized tribes in in 37 states. And to serve the American Indians and Alaskan Natives, Indian Health Services currently uses a system known as the Resource Patient Management System. That system's 40 years old. And it's based on outdated technology and has increasing challenges to develop, deploy, and support dozens of independent facilities across the country. So IHS has done extensive research as well as partnered and discussed with the tribal and urban partners to determine that RPMS must be replaced with a modern solution to enable comprehensive, accessible healthcare for information for patients and clinicians and provide consistent patient management to improve health outcomes. With the development of this new HR system, patients will have better access to their own health information. Providers can coordinate patient care in and out of its network and can overall track the better health of the tribal communities. It's going to take hundreds of unique resource and patient management system instances on local servers across all the different states, and it's going to bring it into a single enterprise instance. And EHR is going to serve all the federal IHS facilities, as well as any tribal or urban Indian organization that would like to participate in this modernization program. Care sites will be able to share patient information with external systems, as well as the private sector referral network to other federal agencies, such as the Department of Veterans Affairs. And this technology will impact every patient in part of the IHS healthcare delivery. And it's exciting that in November, IHS reached a major milestone in the buy and build stage of this modernization program with the selection of an enterprise health records management system. And then quickly, I'll just also tell you, I think that this is a really exciting system we're also modernizing, which is grants.gov. It's HHS is the largest grant-making agency in the United States, and our mission is to enhance the health and well-being of all Americans by providing effective health and human services and fostering sound and sustained advances. And the system right now that we have is not easy to search and find grants, to apply to grants. And our goal is to modernize grants.gov to be extremely simple, accessible, and easy to use for posting, finding, sharing, and applying for federal financial assistance for grants.
Hey, go grants.gov. We really appreciate it. And who knew 37 states? That's very impressive. Well, speaking of electronic health records, Dr. Evans, give us a top line on how that journey is going.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. And I think it's great to be able to follow Jennifer's exciting news about what's happening in IHS with regard to their electronic health record modernization journey. And I think this is an exciting time as well in both the Department of Defense and the VA, as we are on a very similar journey. Since this program last year, we reached a pretty significant and remarkable moment in the history of our implementation of of the federal electronic health record, a single common electronic health record that will support the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, the United States Coast Guard, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, all using the same underlying electronic health record. The deployment of the federal electronic health record, also known in the Department of Defense as MHS Genesis, was completed across the entire Department of Defense. So that is continental United States, and then also outside the continental United States, Asia, Europe, et cetera. The VA, we are live with the Federal Electronic Health Record at 6 of our VA medical centers. Currently, that's 6 VA medical centers, 25 of our outpatient clinics, 104 remote sites with over 13,000 users now, and 275,000 veterans who are being served. Those sites are in Spokane, Walla Walla, Columbus, Ohio, White City, and Roseburg, Oregon. And now most recently at the James A. Lovell Federal Healthcare Center. Really an exciting opportunity. As I think you may be aware, the James A. Lovell Federal Healthcare Center is a fully joint, the only fully joint VA and DoD healthcare system, where folks from both departments are serving beneficiaries of both departments as one team at one site there in North Chicago. And they were using 2 different electronic health records to execute their mission, and now are on a single common system, able to serve the beneficiaries who are receiving care from them. So pretty exciting time in the program as we continue to move forward with modernizing our electronic health record in VA.
Huge leap forward, and I'm sure that all the beneficiaries are excited about that capability. Undoubtedly, raise the care there. Dr. Osborne, Microsoft. Who knew that Microsoft had a chief medical officer? Well, I guess we all did. Give us a state as to, where does Microsoft fit into this ecosystem and delivering capability to enable these agencies?
Hey, thanks, Luke. Man, great question. And probably not enough time to go through so many different things going on. Microsoft is a big place. Obviously, it's a big company and really focused on healthcare. So many things I could talk about, but I'll just touch on one in the interest of time. One category that is really compelling, I think, for everybody is healthcare efficiencies. We don't have enough physicians to go around, not enough clinicians or nurses, and the cost of healthcare is really high. So efficiencies are going to put a dent in both of those things. And tons of technologies, but one that I'm really excited about is something called ambient technology. And this is where you have a virtual assistant, an electronic assistant who's in the room, who's taking notes, who's writing the report and organizing it in such a way that is standardized and easy to access and fits into the health record. So that seems like pretty subtle, but it's really profound in a lot of ways. So if you imagine you're talking to you have an appointment, typically, they've got so many things to do in a short amount of time. And so they're trying to optimize that. So they're at their computer, they're looking up labs, they're writing the note as they're talking to you. And often, doing that, you got your back to somebody, you don't have that interaction like you would like we're having now. And not only that, then it's distracting, there's cognitive fatigue. So what you're really doing with this type of technology is you're taking the computer out of the equation in this interaction. And what we found is what that does is not only does it make the interaction more efficient, that's great, but it also increases patient satisfaction. They're having an interaction, real meaningful interaction. And also, like a little side effect here, is it has reduced subjective feelings of burnout from the clinicians that are feeling like they're just doing so much, because not only is there the cognitive fatigue of this interaction with the computer and the patient that's taken out, but also it becomes easier to get through the day. You're not like trying to catch up at the end of the day, completing the notes. The other thing that I think is really compelling about this is you have additional data now, data that wasn't necessarily intentionally captured just for this efficiency, but you have voice. And voice is like perhaps another vital sign. And when you're using things like ambient technology, now you can also do analysis on the tone and the quality of the voice. And so you get another biomarker of physical health and wellness. And so there's so many wins in this. And so those are the types of things that I'm really excited about, where you solve one problem, but solve many others.
That's a really interesting angle on the voice tone, and fantastic that you can take a lot of that I don't want to say low level, but all that monotony off the table and allow the clinicians to just really focus on the patient. Glad to see this. Gary, how about at Verizon? A lot of stuff going on over there in your healthcare and life sciences. Give us a top line.
Yeah, no, I was smiling listening to Dr. Osborne because many of the things that he had talked about are things that we're very hyper focused on as well. And I talk a lot to my team. So I lead the innovation team, if you will, for healthcare and life sciences. And I talk to them a lot about we need to help our provider customers with operational efficiencies. You know, I mean, we love talking about all the stuff that's happening, you know, with computer vision in the surgical room, right? Augmented reality, physician puts on a pair of HoloLens. We can overlay three-dimensional image. You know, the physician can see the tumor, guide his or her incision. AI-enabled gloves. When my boys tell me, Dad, what you do for a living sounds boring. You work in technology. I go Tony Stark on them. AI-enabled gloves, digital twins of spines, you know, rotating. So it's some really exciting stuff. But before we really get there and focus on all these amazing things happening from a clinical perspective, we have to help them with their operational efficiencies first. And you know, in this role, one of the things I love about my role is having the global responsibility is I hear from all these new digital health IT companies. You know, I think there was one study or one publication I read where there were 13,000 new digital health IT companies that came to fruition as a result of COVID. So I certainly hear from a lot of them. And one of them that I'll just share this one because, you know, Dr. Osborne, again, got me thinking about this one, you know, ambient listening and whatnot. I've always said my dream in healthcare, if you will, is to make it proactive, right? And so we're doing lots of work in the home, right? You know, there's this decentralization of healthcare thing going on, more care moving into the home. So, you know, my team is really focused on, you know, how can we help deliver a better patient experience in the home with us as the enabler, right? And there's a specific company that has this AI-based voice companion. And so not only is, you know, think of an Alexa type device that's ingesting all this sensor data, but it's also learning the behaviors, you know, of that patient. You know, maybe there's some computer vision in this individual's home. They're complex, they're chronic. You know, watching their activity, their gait. Hey, they've got to change in the way they're walking. They might be at a fall risk. But it's learning the behaviors and it's interacting. That's the one piece I hadn't really seen. And it's interacting. Hey, how you feeling today? Or did you take your lisinopril? You've got an appointment at 4:00. Do you have transportation? Can I call you an Uber? Would you like to make it virtual? But just that whole proactive and predictable. So I'm really excited about, you know, the technology that's happening, you know, both inside and outside of the hospital. But to Dr. Osborne's point, we have to help, you know, our providers in our communities with the operational efficiency piece, you know, so that they can prepare for all this emergent tech. Because when I think of 13,000 new digital health IT companies, well, a lot of the hospitals in this country still have that old infrastructure. They can't take advantage of a lot of these things that are happening, you know, where you need more bandwidth. And I promise I'm not about to do a Verizon commercial because I'm talking about more bandwidth and low latency, you know, faster speeds. But to take advantage of this emergent tech, you need those things. And that's kind of where my team comes in.
Absolutely. And unlocking these capabilities about care in the home is absolutely fantastic. So we really look forward to hearing more about that and appreciate everything that you all are doing. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about IT healthcare, giving a lot of fantastic examples. Tim, I'm going to throw it over to you. Where does Equinix fit into this healthcare ecosystem? I'm sure very firmly and very securely. Give us a top line.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Luke. And I'll be honest, this is a hard one to come behind after everyone's already spoken. But I'll do my best to, I think, provide a little bit of a summary. But yes,
Sure.
Equinix is a very interesting company. A lot of us associate us with data centers, and while we do manage, lots of data centers, and I know VA and HSS are customers of ours, but honestly, we're more of an interconnection company, and that's really the history of us. We've brought together and helped build and support, if not steward, ecosystems. And one of the ones that we've been focused on in the last several years is the healthcare ecosystem. And we realized very quickly that having a front row seat to this digital transformation that's going on, that's been going on now for probably 10 years, is that these organizations are trying to adopt these newer technologies, AI, of course, maybe even quantum computing shortly in the future, but their underlying network is not very sound. It was based on an architecture that was designed 20, 25 years ago, a very common hub and spoke model where all the data was brought back to the data center, right? And at the time, that made the perfect sense of the world, and it was the right architecture. But the world has changed in the last 25 years. The data is not all in the data center anymore. It's elsewhere, and it has to get to clinicians, and it has to get to a patient, and it has to get from the patient back to an EHR system. So when I think about like what Jennifer was talking about with regard to IHS and trying to upgrade this RPMS system and basically turn it, move it into the 21st century, my immediately thought of, well, geez, those tribes, 574, if I heard correctly, across 37 states, is the network sound? Is that most important, right? If the network architecture is sound to be able to support that, and you've got what we call layer one in place, and Gary can come behind me later and maybe chat about this a little bit, but if your layer one's the physical connections in place, then everything is good, right? But then that also begets the question, well, where does the workload in comparison to where the data needs to be? And so very often we get in situations with, and again, I also support the private sector. So I talk to very large hospital systems regionally and even internationally in some cases. But really, where is the EHR data? Because if the EHR data is sitting in California, but most of your patients are in, say, the East Coast, that doesn't make much sense. We should get the EHR closer to the patients. And oh, by the way, if you're a large health system like VA and you have to support veterans all over the U.S., CONUS and maybe even OCONUS for all I know, then ultimately you might need copies of that data. You want to have a copy East Coast, West Coast, North, South, CONUS, OCONUS, right? And replicated and eventually consistent so that everybody can access the same data. And so that's kind of what we talk to a lot of these our health systems and these agencies about, is about better ways to modernize the network infrastructure first, take a look at where Equinix facilities are, and ultimately we're on top of the network fiber. So if you look at network maps, you'll find Equinix, and then you very simply say, well, is the foundation solid, and is the foundation in place first? Because if that's there, then what Jennifer wants to do with IHS and be able to support the 2.6 million Native American Indians and be able to promote their health and their well-being, then we've got to have all this infrastructure kind of ready, the foundation, if you will, in place first. Absolutely. And then that leads to lots of other advantages, which we'll get to later.
Sure. You really want to focus on optimizing to enhance that patient experience.
Right.
Referencing Jennifer. Jennifer, we'd like to swing it up to you and talk about a specific program. You top-lined a couple of interesting ones. Do you have one that you'd like to highlight?
Actually about protecting all of the different systems in the healthcare and public health sector. As we know, it's faced dramatic increases in cyber attacks, causing disruption to the care continuum. And the National Security Council considered healthcare and public health sector to be one of the top 3 sector prioritized for additional cybersecurity attention. And HHS helps the healthcare and public health critical infrastructure sector prepare for and respond to cyber threats, to adapt to the evolving threat landscape, and to build a more resilient sector. In January, HHS, through the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, released voluntary healthcare specific cybersecurity performance goals. They're known as CPGs, as well as a gateway website that's going to help healthcare and public health sector organizations implement these high impact cybersecurity practices and ease the access of the plethora of cybersecurity resources and offer that to other health federal partners as well. These CPGs, they provide a layered protection at different points of the weaknesses in an organization's environment, which is crucial to increase cybersecurity resilience and ultimately protect the patient safety. And it takes a layered defense approach, which provides redundancy. So if the one line of defense is compromised, additional layers exist as a backup to ensure the threats are stopped along the way. And within the CPGs, there are both essential and enhanced goals outlined that were common practices and cybersecurity frameworks through the health industry cybersecurity practice, the NIST cybersecurity framework, as well as the National Cybersecurity Strategy and Implementation Plan. So if anybody ever wants to see them, if you just Google CPG HHS, that comes right up to the top. It really does give a step-by-step plan on how every healthcare facility can make sure that they're protecting the patient's data as well as their infrastructure.
And I would imagine that the zero trust architecture really plays a role there as well. Glad to see that. I know that that's a super important topic, and that there's a lot of focus on it. Dr. Osborne, you brought up a very interesting technology there that is being used to enhance the patient experience. Would you like to highlight another one?
Oh yeah, for sure. Thanks, Luke. There's so many great things happening, and this was mentioned a couple times by different people. But one of the things I just maybe pivot a tiny bit is to share a broader level program. I think for more generalized level of success. So let me explain that a little bit. So first, the why. So it can be really challenging to bring in new technology into any healthcare system, and specifically, like, you have an employee who's really excited, and then they're like, "How do I do this?" And it's a bit of a scavenger hunt. And there's like all these different offices and departments, and they all have their own standards, and you have to kind of go through this menagerie of trying to figure out how to get things done. Hard to know what the requirements are and everything else. So, I certainly, I think all of us in the space have encountered that in one way or another if you try to do this. And, once you've done it, then lots of people are like, "Oh my gosh, you've done that. So how did you do that?" So we saw that a little while ago, and we thought, okay, we got to address this. And so one of the things was, how do you even begin? Like, what's the framework? What's the roadmap? And so what we did is we brought all of those key stakeholders to the table. We brought the leaders from IT and biomed and security and privacy and compliance and executive leadership and others all to the same table with the explicit goal of specifically empowering a project champion to be successful, to share knowledge so we could all, be successful together, and to guide and empower those project champions. And so we did that, and we brought all these people together, and we created a structure and governance and the administrative infrastructure. And by bringing those people together with, a lot of other governance, we were able to bring in a diverse array of healthcare technologies that would otherwise not be available. And I think that that's really important on so many levels. You got a clinician who's busy, they're trying to solve a problem, but they don't have the time, energy, knowledge, background to do that all by themselves. And I think it also emphasizes the really important point is that healthcare is a team sport, and we got to leverage the strategic advantage of diversity. And so bringing all these people together, I think, is just another example of how we can do so much more for everybody and sort of get to the core of the whole point of healthcare is helping other people be successful.
Healthcare, a team sport, a lot of different technologies, and fantastic that you're working on this ecosystem to properly introduce that. John, how about up there at the National Coordinator State of the State there? Can you want to focus on a specific area that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you about a program that we've been working on for years, and now we have a live health data network.
Live.
We are so excited about. So this is a project that's called the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement, or TEFCA for short. And this was a activity that Congress had us do, or gave us the authority to do, in the 21st Century Cures Act.
Helped you with, we'll say.
We are so appreciative of the collaborative work that we get to do with Congress. We offer them TA. We talk to them a lot, and they really understood what was an issue with healthcare data interoperability in our country. So we did a ton of work from the HITECH Act to digitize the nation's healthcare system. We installed electronic health record systems and physicians' offices across the country. And then, as all of us on this panel recognize, there was the problem of those systems not talking to each other adequately. And Congress gave ONC some new authorities, and one of those was to develop or support a trusted exchange framework and common agreements. So we've been working on this for a long time, and as of December, we have a live sharing occurring across the qualified health information networks that are part of TEFCA. And the partners that we've worked with in the private sector have been right at the table on making this happen. And that is going to make sharing of records easier, more efficient for the physicians who are part of this network. The way that this helps is really the technical connectivity between systems is one thing, but it's the governance, it's the legal terms that are required in order to ensure that you can trust the other person that you're sending the data to, that you're secure and have the financial reserves if there is a terrible incident that occurs and something needs to happen very quickly. All of that is baked into the TEFCA work. And so we are so excited about that, including ensuring that we have a very strong approach to privacy and security, building on what Jennifer was saying earlier. That is the cornerstone of everything we do. We can't have trust. We can't have data sharing if we don't have strong privacy and security. So,
Amen.
So excited about this work.
John, hats off to you and your team for pulling that off. That's a monumental task, and laying that framework down, very important. A lot of times it's not about the technology. It's all these other things you described. Tim, I'm going to bounce down to you at Equinix. You want to give us an example of where you'd like to highlight you're enhancing this ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, and in fact, I'll come right behind John there. And it's something that I've been trying to promote within the four walls of Equinix. And we've been able to just construct a global private backbone fabric that allows intercommunication between all of our facilities, both CONUS and OCONUS. And I've been trying to get HINs interested in using us because of our private peering capabilities and because of the healthcare ecosystem, more broadly speaking. So let's talk a little bit first about the security angle. So I always say that the best cybersecurity starts with the best physical security. So you want to have a hardened facility with multiple layers of physical security so that you keep the unwanted eyes off of those networks, right? So once that's accomplished, then you want to be able to privately peer. And I jokingly say it's, two tin cans and a string, right? It's very private, maybe not super efficient with cans and string, of course, but imagine just having a private network connection in a data center where your cage, say it's the VA EHR, interacting and working with maybe the Indian health systems, right? So that those records can get, moved around in the event that a Native American Indian enters the service, right? So that type of thing. So that interoperability at that level becomes a little bit easier, right? And now the connection is secure because it's within the physical secure environment. Maybe even skiffed if necessary. By the way, Equinix can support that as needed, but within that secure area. And then that begets, that obviates the need for certain cyber equipment that you don't necessarily have to have, because if you've already trusted entities and you've got that one piece of fiber and you're talking, you don't necessarily need firewalls and all this other stuff. So there's potential cost savings there for the various entities. But again, as we've been trying to evolve the ecosystem, it's not just connectivity to each other that's important, but it's also as EHRs have evolved and grown, and they are taking more advantage of AI capabilities and offloading some of that compute resource to the cloud. They're not just all on-prem anymore, right? Epic, Meditech, Cerner, they have components that are deployed in Microsoft Azure, IBM Cloud, et cetera. So you have to kind of take a look more broadly at what you're trying to accomplish as we bring some of this health information together. And it's got to, of course, be secure. And we only want certain people looking at it because health records are 50 times more valuable on the dark web than credit card information. So
yeah, it's a very, very tall order and a
very tall order
statistic there. And talking about computing on the edge here, a whole new angle to that. Really do appreciate it. Dr. Evans, you gave us a really interesting nugget there at the end about that combo between the veterans and DoD. You want to give us another example of some interesting work that you all are working on as you're on this electronic health record journey?
Yeah, I think I think as we talk about the electronic health record, I thought maybe I would pivot a little bit to talking about another set of digital technologies that are really important in how we think about care delivery to veterans. What we heard earlier in the program was about the trend and the importance of bringing healthcare to the patient, in our case, the veteran, where they are. I think we as the healthcare industry learned an awful lot during the COVID pandemic about that shift. But we're not talking about that as much lately, although I think it's just as important that we're thinking about how we are getting care to where people are. This year, in fact, just last month, May of 2024, was the 21st anniversary of there being a formal telehealth program in VA telehealth services.
Impressive.
21 years is a pretty significant run. And just to give you a sense of the scale, last year, more than 2.4 million veterans took part in more than 11.6 million episodes of care through telehealth. And more than 9.4 million of those telehealth visits were video telehealth visits to a veteran on their mobile device or in their home or in a location of their choosing, which is really, I think, pretty significant. But taking that another step forward, it's much more than that. It's how we're using telehealth to deliver asynchronous care, capturing images, for example, in the home and embedding that into clinicians' workflows so that we can actually provide better care. Last year, more than 290,000 veterans had more than 314,000 visits, whether it be teledermatology, teleretinal screening, where there was an asynchronous exchange of information. And on top of that, really delivering tools that help our patients engage in their own healthcare on their own terms. We're super excited about our VA Health and Benefits mobile application. You can find it on the iOS App Store, the Google Play Store as well. We have had more than 2 million downloads of our flagship mobile application. And this is a place where veterans can go for a one-stop shop to check status of their claims, to get prescription refills, to find out when their appointments are, to message their clinicians or their VA healthcare team, really bringing that whole experience together for veterans, in the phone that's in their pocket is a part of where I get excited about what we're able to achieve with health IT modernization.
It really is phenomenal, and the scale is absolutely incredible. And this asynchronous that you're talking about, and these IoT devices on the patient, right, and being able to pull that data back and have a much better experience is incredible. So we really appreciate that, and I know every veteran really appreciates all that you all are doing to deliver those capabilities. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We are talking about healthcare IT across the ecosystem, if you will. And we're going to go to Verizon. Gary, we're talking about specific examples you'd like to highlight.
There was a paper that I was part of, a white paper that I was part of last year, and it was called Heartbreak in the Heartland. And it was a group of us that came together, and what we did is we highlighted the problems that are facing folks in rural America. And I can share this paper with you if you'd like to read it, but really the net of it was challenges around access, right? So we talked about turning parts of rural America into, I'll just say, innovation hubs, if you will. And so one of the areas, and we've had a number of successful projects over the last year related to this, and it's it's taking healthcare and moving it into non-traditional healthcare settings, right? There's an announcement we made with URMC and Five Star Bank, and we're putting health kiosks in banks, so folks who are in rural America tend to frequent their banks more than folks who are in urban America. So we're going to the places where people are, right? I like to camp at this little town called Broken Bow in Oklahoma. Well, I don't go by any hospitals. I don't see, any physician practices, but I see, like Dollar Generals, and I see, different places like that. And so that's an area of focus for us in libraries, putting health kiosks or clinics and virtual clinics, if you will. Jennifer mentioned amazing work they're doing with some tribal communities. We just had an announcement where we're working with a tribal community in Ketchikan, Alaska, where not only have we put a private 5G network on their tribal communities, but we're also putting some virtual kiosks just to help with access, right? Because, let's face it, social determinant of health, an SDOH determinant for an individual access connectivity is a crucial component. If you don't have connectivity, you don't have access, right? And so the example with the virtual clinic on the tribal community land, it's really exciting because, imagine an 8x8 kind of box, if you will. Now, each one of those, they're very sophisticated. It's not like one we would put into the bank, but these are going to be manned by a nurse. By the end of the year, they're going to have CT scanning capabilities. This is a virtual ICU, if you will. So lots of focus around things like that I think surprises people when I talk about some of the things we're doing at Verizon related to helping improve access. Just trying to go, I guess, non-traditional, if you will. So lots of exciting work in that type of area.
Fantastic. And of course, that digital divide is really what we're describing here. So important to close that gap. So we really do appreciate all the work that's going on there. All right, we're going to start talking about priorities. And John, I'm going to start with you. Top priority for you at the coordinator's office this year?
Top priority. Well, we have a few, and I've talked about our work on AI already, and our regulatory activities, our certification program. And I wanted to talk about one of the ongoing priorities we always have, which is collaborate with our federal partners. And that's part of our name. We are the national.
That's what you all do, right? You're the coordinators.
That's all right. Exactly. And so as Steve Posnack, our deputy national coordinator, says, we're your coordinator too, to our federal partners. So we work very closely with our colleagues, not just across HHS, but across the entire federal government. And Dr. Evans, it's been I've just been smiling as you've been talking to hear about all of the work you're doing as our teams are working together on those and looking at things like how do we best serve our veterans through different initiatives. And to do that, we really need better standards for the work that we're doing. And so we collaborate with our VA partners, but also with others outside of the government, obviously. But I did want to mention one specific priority and program, and that is on behavioral health, which is, I know, part of everybody's concerns here. And so one initiative that we're so excited about is our Behavioral Health Information Technology initiative that we're doing with the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, part of HHS. This is an over $20 million effort that we're pursuing to advanced data standards for behavioral health. That's going to make it easier for those providers that we're all looking to serve and the patients that they're looking to serve be able to coordinate care more easily, be able to track the quality of their care, measure that care. We have a grant opportunity for $1 million out on the street. We'd love to get folks to apply. This is our leading edge acceleration project. And so please apply. Yeah, we really think that collaborating with our federal partners is
job
always
one.
A high priority for us.
For sure. We really do appreciate all the extended effort there. Dr. Evans, number one priority for you this year?
Yeah, I think if we're talking about health IT, the number one priority for me is always about the user experience. We deliver health information technology for a purpose. You know, ultimately, healthcare is a human endeavor. It's about empowering those that we serve, the patients, in our case, the veterans that we serve, and caring for them. And that means we need to think carefully about what the experience is for them, about the IT, and the IT is meeting their needs. But I'd argue it's just as important for our hardworking care providers. Dr. Osborne mentioned earlier, there's a shortage of many different types of care providers, and how we think about not just implementing health information technology, but implementing health technology with an eye on the user experience. This is, you know, we've been in a with our electronic health record modernization journey. We've been spending the last year, we did deploy at FHCC, but we've been spending the last year for the rest of the project, really spending a lot of time thinking about how do we optimize the electronic health record to best meet the needs of our organization so that we can continue to deploy it across the rest of the organization. And a lot of that focuses on, are we really getting into the weeds of what the day-to-day integrated experience is of the person on the front line of care? That's a priority.
Love the CX angle, we'll call that, and really do appreciate that. Jennifer, top priority for you at the CIO's office?
But I think I already mentioned two of them: modernizing our legacy systems and cybersecurity. So I'm going to take a different approach with this one, is investing in our workforce, right? Because
Right on.
we have to cultivate a diverse, skilled, agile, IT savvy organization that's able to use emerging technologies and innovations to serve the mission. And we have to make sure that our workforce is either being skilled up, or we're hiring the right skills, that they understand the importance of every change they make to the IT system, that there's a security and privacy element to that. And we also want to make sure that we enable the communications between the workforce to ensure that they're having continuous learning. You know, HHS was the second best place to work for the large agencies. And, you know, we need to constantly continue building our workforce to recruit the best of the best.
Love the focus on the workforce. We really do appreciate that. And I know they do as well. Well, we've come to that time where we have to wrap it up. And we always like to ask this last question, which is, let's fast forward 2, maybe 3 years. Tim, I'm going to start with you at Equinix. What are you going to be doing for the ecosystem 2 to 3 years from now? What's that crystal ball look like?
Well, yeah, it's I always tell people I'm a very bad predictor of the future. Don't ask me what the future looks like, but because it always seems to change before our eyes.
Sure.
But I will say let's talk about AI and maybe even quantum computing a little bit. So AI, I think, is here to stay. It's always been here, let's be honest. And for those who have, you know, this much, and again, I'm an engineer, so I apologize if I say something out of or too technical, but a lot of the math and essence of AI has been around for a long time. And it will continue to be around for a long time. I think it's just more commercialized now. But one thing that we're experiencing within Equinix as various organizations, not just federal and state, local, and not just healthcare, but they're all kind of pivoting to AI, is that it needs more of everything. AI needs more data. AI needs more bandwidth. It needs lower latency. You've got to get more data to a point to process faster, to learn, on and on and on. So that's the thing that I think just needs to be maybe take a pause, take a step back and say, well, hold on, before we just dive headfirst into this, let's really understand where we can see it fit within maybe clinical ERP, or maybe in improving the quality of care for the veterans who are admitted in the hospital, whatever it is, trying to shorten lengths of stay, right? Whatever those goals are. Clinical decision support. I love what Dr. Osborne talked about earlier, right? And all those technologies do need that underlying infrastructure and network to be able to support that. So I think just AI, just maybe think about it also in terms of, you know, it hasn't been around that long. There isn't a ton of data. We do have a lot of data we're feeding it, but is it a lot of data? Really? I mean, humans have been here for 1 million years. We've been collecting data for 100 or so. maybe 500, depending on your point of view. So really not enough time has gone by. So I would say just again, maybe just treat it with caution and look at it very carefully. And then quantum computing, I think, is going to be probably even more advantageous 3 to 4 to 5 years down the road as the technology advances. And where I think it has a place in healthcare is in the creation of large data sets. So instead of being able to look at the history of VA records, say, Dr. Evans, where you're going back in time and saying, well, this is how we've been able to treat patients in, say, World War I or whenever it started. And we've been tracking that. Now imagine being able to use quantum computing to generate, instead of a couple of million veterans worth of health information, you can generate 1 billion or 1 trillion or 10 trillion, and then use regression analysis and then work backwards from that. So just the ability of quantum to be able to create so much data fixes the problem of AI right now, where we really don't have a lot of data. So I think those two technologies are kind of going to be used very, very interestingly within the health world.
And we'll look forward to that. We really do appreciate it. Gary, how about at Verizon, if we fast forward a couple of years from now, what types of capabilities do you think you'll be delivering for our customer base here?
Well, there was a paper I wrote in grad school, which was quite a while ago, and I talked about, kind of the future. We're all going to have a bot or digital human kind of focusing and, and helping us with our day-to-day. I'm still waiting for that digital human to help me manage my calendar. I want them to start with that first. But there is a lot of focus around that topic, digital human, and it's really exciting. And we've mentioned AI a few times, right? And John and Jennifer, just love what you guys are doing, your departments, to help folks build trust with these AI models, right? And I was in DC last week talking about that very thing, right? How do we get people to trust what's happening from our artificial intelligence? I'm like, hey, LNC just did this, and this. So anyway, thank you. But when I think about bias in all these AI models, it comes from two areas, right? It's data and then algorithms. Right before Affordable Care Act was signed, I was writing with the team algorithms to predict certain disease states, right? CHS, diabetes, pediatric asthma. And we were focused on clinical data, we were focused on financial data, marrying up those data streams, then putting algorithms on top of it. What we weren't doing at all were considering social terms of healthcare data into those predictive models. And so it's great. And again, John and Jennifer, you guys are ensuring that those AI models are equitable and putting in that information. But what I always tell everyone is, and you think about like IBM Watson Health, right? They thought they were going to change the world related to, and I'm not throwing IBM under the bus, they're a great partner of ours. But healthcare is difficult and data it's tough, right? They came in and then realized that very thing. Oh my goodness, the healthcare data is messy. Working with the CIO of a big health system said, Gary, you're going to love our data. It's clean. Like, well, Citalprol's in there 40 different ways. Misspellings, abbreviation, dosages all over the place. And so for those AI models to be right and for us to really glean the proper insight into them, there needs to be a focus on normalization of that data, right? To one single clinical ontology so that you can make sense of it. So I think we've got a lot of the right mechanisms in place to utilize, artificial intelligence to glean better insights with all the proper data streams, cleaning up the data, having people trust in the data, trust in those algorithms, and then kind of that digital human kind of companion, which I've got 4 different partners doing digital humans today, which with our infrastructure, like we're the great enabler, right, at Verizon. And last thing I'll say is, to quote one of my old bosses, sometimes at Verizon, we come up with a great idea. It typically comes from our customers, comes from our partners. We're the enablement engine. And so we love partnering with folks like yourselves to kind of co-create, identify problems that we can solve together. And I think the digital human is something that's going to be really exciting.
Carry on with the digital human. We love it, and we look forward to that. Dr. Osborne, Microsoft, you talked about some technologies today. Well, what's coming out of the Petri dish and on the way into the mainstream 2 to 3 years from now?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things going on. This is the most exciting time.
One cool one that's just going to blow our mind.
Well, it's really many things. When we're talking about AI, AI is going to be the top of the list. AI is here, it's happening. It's, the genie's out of the bottle. Clearly it's big and it's rapidly evolving. To be clear, it's not a cure-all or a go-to for everything, but can be exceedingly useful in the right setting. and, promise is huge for health and wellness, turning illness into efficiency and prosperity. So really the immediate top priorities is helping others be successful with AI, not only optimizing the potential of the tools that we have, but co-developing new ones that while also being really firmly grounded on a lot of important things others have said about responsible AI. And, with that, there's a risk that others have said about compounding the disparities that is embedded in existing data. So we need to get through that. I mean, data is going to be foundational because, whatever you put on top of that has a potential to amplify that. And really, we also need to be really fast because this is happening. It's an unprecedented time. And so we need to bring the right people at the table so we can have diverse and informed stakeholders that can participate. And, quite frankly, if we're not in the game, I mean, it's one of those things. It's if you can't ignore it. And if you're not in the game, you're not going to be part of the solution. And it's this unprecedented time that we have this narrow window of opportunity to positively impact the trajectory for generations. And it's not going to happen. It doesn't have to happen to us. It can happen with us, with our direction. And so with that, we really need to get everybody educated about the pitfalls and the benefits, and to get access to the tools, not only so people don't get left behind, so people understand it and can make informed decisions about how it can be used in the most ethical way.
It needs to be a collective experience. We really do appreciate everything you all are doing. Dr. Evans, fast forward, let's say 3 years from now, let's talk 2028-ish, 2029. You're going to be well into the reinitiation of the rollout of the electronic health record. You're going to have a lot of other activity going on. What's it going to look like when you look around at that point? What's the anticipation?
Yeah, I think I get as excited about as anyone about the new technologies that are going to come. And we've talked about artificial intelligence. We've talked about quite a bit in the program. I guess I would say what I want us to not lose sight of over the next 3 years as well, if I have a vision for what the future is in the next 3 years, it is equitable access to the experiences that we're talking about here, right? We still, I think, struggle to deliver, for example, in rural America, right? We still have issues about access to care. We still have folks who need probably a little more help getting up to speed, maximally utilizing the technology that we're delivering to them, whether they be end users of an electronic health record, a telehealth system, a new artificial intelligence system, whether it be patients trying to engage with the digital tools that we're delivering them. There is still a very sort of human part of adopting health information technologies, and us making sure that we're essentially supporting individuals in that adoption and delivering, frankly, broadband internet to the entire country. That I would argue is where I see a vision of the next 3 years. What I want to see over 3 years is reduction of the disparities that Dr. Osborne mentioned, and an increase in the equity of access to these tools that we're talking about.
Fantastic. And I think we all can rally around that. Jennifer, you're going to have the workforce up to snuff. You're going to have some of these major programs we just described up and away. What's the focus going to be 2 to 3 years from now? What's it going to look like in the CIO's office? What's your anticipation there?
Definitely echo what Dr. Evans said. And I think, what 3 main areas in order to really make sure that we're moving towards the future is that we're making data-driven decisions. We have all of this data, right? But then it has to be interoperable. How are we going to make sure that it's, driving towards having that access across the different healthcare systems? And then I think most importantly is the ability for patient empowerment, to empower the patients to be part of their journey, to help make the decisions for them to better understand where they are and their own health journey, and to be part of that decision making. And I think for the ability to make have those real-time decision making, having, if we're able to get the doctors where they can have that interaction much more closely with the patient. You hear it all the time. They're looking at the computer. And so what Dr. Osborne talked about, I think that will really empower a patient to have better healthcare and equitable healthcare across the United States.
Really unlock that, I'll call it customer experience, right? John,
Luke, thank you.
what will you be focusing your attention on 2 to 3 years from now out of the Office of National Coordinator's office? Take us home.
Well, thank you, Luke. Thank you, everyone, again for this. As I said at the top of the hour, it's such an exciting time to be in this space, and where we're going is incredibly exciting. I think that interoperability is really an evolution and an activity that we are on together as a community. And a key part of all of that is standards. We are building and continuing to advance standards to meet the needs of the patients, the providers, the payers, the community, really. And one of those areas is around APIs. Think about where we are today as consumers because of APIs. I mean, it was great when we got a map on our smartphone, but it was because of APIs that we now have apps like DoorDash and Uber. So I don't have to worry about making dinner at night. I can order it on my phone because these apps are able to build new services based on the standardized APIs that are available. And if you look at Apple Health Kit and what they've done with FHIR API standards, I see that, so many innovative things that can occur. We're working with interested parties in the community in our work on TEFCA that I was talking about earlier to see that we can have FHIR APIs built in a way that engenders trust, that has the governance and oversight that's needed, and collaborating with our health information networks that are involved in that work. That includes Epic, Commonwealth, eHealth Exchange, Health Gorilla, No2, Conza, MedAllies. These are the qualified health information networks under TEFCA that is live data sharing right now. I think we're going to continue to see novel and innovative services across the health IT ecosystem because of these standards. One of those key areas is in cancer care. We're so excited about standardization related to the US CDI plus cancer data elements. And we had White House event and commitments made from our industry partners there as well. We're so excited to see what will come out of that. And so, we at the Office of the National Coordinator for Health IT, HHS, are so excited for the work that we're all doing together.
And we're excited as well, and we really do appreciate it. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this program. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors for supporting us on the show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.